Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley, and wow, we got an absolutely fantastic guest coming your way today. This young man right here, I can call him a young man, is doing so many great things. And, many times we have trials and tribulations that we have to overcome in order to find our vision, our purpose, and stick with that one. So we're going to talk about that today. But before we do anything, let's get the radio, television, and podcast, everything started at the same time. Chris, let's do it.
It's Your Life is sponsored by James J.C. Cooley.
Life is a series of circles and cycles, phases and stages. These are your experiences that teach you the lessons of life. You can either ignore them or embrace them. Welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. James is a motivational speaker, author, military veteran, and founder of the James Cooley Foundation. James is here to equip you to strive for greatness and to overcome adversity. It's time to get equipped today for the challenges of tomorrow. Now here's the host of It's Your Life, James Cooley.
Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James J.C. Cooley. We got an absolutely fantastic, wonderful show coming your way. We're going to talk about this young man that's going to share with us some of the things that he's doing, some of the things that trials and tribulations that he had to overcome. But, sometimes when we overcome trials and tribulations, that put us out there, that feeds us to go out and even be better than what we were before. So I am so excited to have this guest on the show today. And I tell you, whichever platform that you are watching or listening to, all you have to do is jump in, be part of the conversation. You just go to the comments, ask any questions that you might have, or pick up the phone and dial 1-866-577-2473. We'll get you on. We'll get you some answers. As you know, I cannot start anything without bringing on my executive producer and co-host, Dr. Michelle Cooley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, doing great. I am excited about the guests we're having on the show today. I mean, we all go through trials and tribulations. It's about how we respond to them. We're human. We might get upset. We might get frustrated. We might want to give up, but there's a spirit inside us that just leads us to determination and resiliency. So we're going to hear his story today.
Well, so I'm excited, Michelle. Can you please introduce the title of the show, the purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely wonderful guest that we have?
Oh, most definitely. So the title of today's show is called Tim. And we're going to have a sit-down discussion with management and business consultant, Tim Grant. We're going to talk about his cancer journey, his recovery from cancer and all the other health issues he was going through, and his journey to reinvention. So Tim was born and raised in California, graduated UCLA with a degree in economics. He earned his MBA from Pepperdine University Presidential Key Executive Program and a Juris Doctor from Western State College of Law. He spent the bulk of his career running businesses ranging from small private companies to publicly held corporations in distribution and manufacturing. His efforts frequently involved turnarounds and managing strategic growth. He also ran mergers and acquisitions globally for Avnet Inc. He has been featured on CNN, MSNBC, Forbes Financial News Network, and ESPN. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Tim Grant.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank
you,
James. Good to be with you both again.
Man, it's an absolute pleasure to have me on the show, man. And I've been looking forward for this for the last week or so.
Yeah, so have I. So have I.
So, hey, Tim, can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, what made you click, and why you're so passionate about the things that you're doing?
Sure. I spent I'm born in California, been here all my life, third generation in my family. Third grade, my family, my dad and mom moved me down to Mission Viejo in 1968. And Mission Viejo was at that time a community of about 1,500 people. And what was interesting about Mission Viejo, and particularly turned out to be a tremendous benefit for me growing up there, is that I went to school with the same group of kids from third grade through graduation from high school. And because everybody came from somewhere to be at Mission Viejo, right? I mean, these were new homes. This was a rapidly developing community. So everyone got a brand new home with dirt in their yard, front and back, and you had to get together and, build fences and put in yards, and everybody started from the same place. And I think that was a tremendous, certainly a tremendous opportunity, because even though it was in the middle of Orange County, it wasn't Anaheim or Orange, where I'd been born and then lived until we moved to Mission Viejo. And it was one of those situations where you knew your teachers. I mean, they were your neighbors. I knew many of my teachers' kids. I went to school with them. And it just really, we were kind of growing up all over each other. And it was really a great time to be there. That community now, is almost 100,000. It's now a city. And we were kind of the first in, and part of that experiment and journey that to launch Mission Viejo.
Wow. This, hey, I know that there have been trials and tribulations throughout the past in your life. If you had to identify one adjective that speaks for you, that identifies you, what would that be and why?
Well, I think it would probably be, for me be versatile and curious. And that served me well. The curiosity sort of was a result of versatility, but I was always interested and remain interested in a number of things. I always like to continue to learn. I was always interested in hearing about other people's stories, their journeys, their experiences, either in life or in career. And I think it's important for people to seek out mentors. I know you do a tremendous amount of that. In fact, viewers and listeners don't know that, but as I was, coming up live here, my daughter walked by and pointed at you and said, I know Dr. James. He spoke at my high school. So, but I think to answer your question, it would be versatility, which served me very well in my career, because I did not stay in one industry. And so that really has been a tremendous learning ground for me as you try to figure out, as you have, right, coming from the military and applying things you learned there and skills you developed as a leader, as top enlisted, and then as an officer, leading men and women on missions and programs and projects, etc. You've got transferable skills that you borrow from that experience that you've taken on, combined with your education and your life before, you were in service to the country, and then everything you've done beyond that. So, I would say versatility and curiosity.
Oh, that's very good adjectives, because we learn as we go.
Absolutely, and we learn from each other.
Yeah, and we learn through the good and bad times, and we learn from falling down and getting back up. Right. But most importantly, what I always thought was being able to share the things that you have learned over a period of time, and share that with others, because you might be saving them time.
Right.
And helping them develop a lot quicker than they might. Right. So Tim, what is the best advice you ever received from your parents or your mentor, whoever, that prompt you to start thinking about, I can do anything I set my mind to?
Right. Well, it's I think the first thing that comes to mind is, and I've shared this with others. If you need to know your own worth and your own value, right? And if you're in an organization that doesn't value you for who you are and what you bring to the table, then find another place, right? And I'm reminded of your words, right? That I've seen and heard you share. Commit, create, collaborate with confidence, right? And if you're not in a place that allows you to do that, and in an organization where that's the culture, then move on, right? I mean, it's that's the first advice. And the second came from my wife, who's infinitely smarter than I am, but she shared with me something that I watched her. She, like you, Dr. James, had a successful career in defense contracting. Her career took her to GE, took her to program management at TRW, and other places, and a graduate from Virginia Tech as a logistics engineer. But I watched her mentor other women in an organization that she was a part of as a career coach, and this played for people in career transition. It also played for younger people that were either coming out of high school or coming out of college or trade school and wondering, where they ought to go with their career. And it was something that she called an informational interview. And she said, as you get older, or if you're, like I said, you're a student coming out, if there's a company or an industry that you think you're interested in and you want to learn more about, talk to your parents and ask them about people in their network, right? Your grandparents, people that you meet, your friends' parents, and ask them about, how do they like their career? Why did they choose that career? What skills, made them successful? Would they recommend that career? And if you're already in a career stage, this is the best question that I learned from her is after you've gone through all that because people love to talk about themselves, right? So if you get them talking about their career, their experience, their trade, whatever it may be, and at the end of that discussion, you say, well, do you think this is something that I'd be a fit for, right? And a number of people, and I've watched her do this with people as she coached them, turned that into, well, yeah, I think you could. And it turns into a discussion, which may lead to an internship or, hey, come visit my job, for the day. And so, but it's all part of that same thing, learning from each other. My son's now in college and he thinks he wants to go work for a couple of companies. And I said, call them up. Why don't you, get a hold of their investor relations department or human resources department or recruiting and ask them, right? What skills do they look for? What colleges or universities or schools do they recruit from, right? What are they looking for entry-level positions? And are there internships that they can get involved in? So it's really on the same line of what, I've just been talking about.
Wow. This is so interesting. We're going to have to take a station break. We're going to come back and we're going to pick it up and we're going to continue this absolutely great conversation with Tim Grant. And if you want to be part of the conversation, just go to the platform that you're watching us on or pick up the phone and dial 1-866-577-2473. It's your life. And we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity. Coming up.
I never wanna leave. Yeah, I'm right where I wanna be. We got something you and me. And I can't get rid of this feeling. And just like a magnet, we're just like a magnet. The things we have can be taken for granted. Now I know that it has always been you. I can't help it, I'm so drawn to you. Just like
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I'm just sitting here. As we know, in our first segment, we always do an introduction, get a chance to know our guests and the things that make them tick. And this guest right here, just like I mentioned to you, is absolutely wonderful guest. And we're gonna dive off into a lot of other things that he has experienced and things that he is going to be pursuing. Meaning, when I mention pursue, that means things he's going to be doing. Because if you put your heart and your soul behind anything, you can achieve anything that you set your mind to. So, hey, Tim.
Yes.
Education. I mean, I see, you started out UCLA and you just continue to progress. Mm-hmm. When did you know what you wanted to do? Did you know that prior to entering college?
No, I had a couple of different ideas. I thought I was going to go to. I actually, ironically, got the Orange County Medical Association scholarship for pre-med students, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. But organic chemistry and physics entered my path and redirected me. So at that point, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a physician, and then ended up taking the LSAT and going on to law school. But it was actually in law school. I started law school first year, completed my first year at Pepperdine, and I was paying my way. I had a scholarship, partial scholarship, but I was paying my way through, and it became pretty evident to me that I needed to. I needed to pay for my education, right? And so I ended up leaving after my first year and going to work for a company that the agreement that I had with them coming in was it's kind of a management development training program. I would take a year off. If they liked me and I liked them, they would continue and pay for me to complete my legal education, which I did and they did and we did. But I think it was also when I returned back to law school, having started now in industry, that I really realized I didn't want to practice law as much as I wanted to be a business person. I wanted to run things. I wanted to go do things. I wanted to go, serve customers and get out there and be in industry. But I wanted to have the legal education to be able to, equip me even more so than an MBA to be that manager, leader, executive, right, that I hope to become. Because I set out not to be a great lawyer, but to be a great client. And so, now that I have my legal education, it allowed me to not only be better at what I did, but also when we went outside for practicing attorneys, in various areas from intellectual property, corporations, governance, mergers and acquisitions. I knew who to go to. I understood what information I was looking for, and it just made me a better client, and quite frankly, served my companies better.
Wow. Funny you mentioned that's another parallel that I didn't mention to you.
Mm-hmm. I know where you're going.
I started out going to law school as well at Central Michigan. And I wanted my primary reason for doing that is I wanted to run for public office, Congress, Senate, etc. And I was heavily off into it until there became challenges in my life, or that I had to make a decision on whether I want to continue to do this with all these challenges, or they gave me an opportunity to graduate with an MPA, a Master's of Public Administration. Mm-hmm. And I chose that, and I'm kind of glad that I did now, because many times we start out, we don't know what we want. We think we want these things, and then roadblocks, we get thrown off. But then we have to come back, just like what you mentioned. You have to find the path in order to achieve something that's going to satisfy your needs and the ego as well, right? And that's going to make you successful. Right. So when you discovered that, did you ever think that you would go into corporate America, lead all these companies and just boom the way that you did?
No, not at all. And I think to pick up on your point, I think it's great to have purpose and a direction, right? But I think it's also important to be flexible because, I think it's odd that you go to college and in your freshman year, they want you to declare a major, right? And some people change majors several times, and that's fine, I think. But, as you start, in a direction, and then other things you're exposed to or opportunities come your way, my advice to people would be, don't be so inflexible that, you don't stop and consider what other options are in front of you or things that you didn't know about that you may have learned or experienced that maybe give you a different direction. After organic chemistry and physics took me off the medical school path, I thought I wanted to be, Atticus Finch from, To Kill a Mockingbird, right? And that's what I wanted. That's really what I thought I wanted to do. But, I got the bug when I spent, that first year, and during my college years, during summers, I interned at Hughes Aircraft and I worked in some law firms, and I was just kind of seeing what that was all about. But yeah, I think it's important to start with a direction, but don't be afraid to change that if something else comes along, right? I mean, some people like my buddy Mike Manazar always knew what they wanted to go do, right? I mean, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy. I'm going to fly jets, and I think that's awesome. He obviously did better at physics than I did, but yeah, that's my point.
Hey, you mentioned Mike, man. Mike, just chatting with him a couple of times I have, man. Seemed like a extremely incredible guy, man.
Oh yeah,
I am looking forward to having him on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show. I'm going to join in too. Mike and I go back to, the summer between sophomore year and junior year, where he moved into Mission Viejo, and we met, going back to 75, 76.
Yeah. So you just talked about corporate. Let's dive into, how did you get started in corporate, and how did you know when it was time to jump off this boat, jump on the other one, and lead up?
Right. Right. Well, really my first, real, not real job, but my first job, for working full time, other than jobs I had through high school and college, was one of the oldest corporations in California called 𝐷oCommon. And I really came across 𝐷oCommon from my dad, who dealt with one of their divisions. It was a conglomerate, a holding company, if you will, of a number of different operations, mostly manufacturing, varied industries. And his experience with them in his role at Hughes Aircraft. And so I looked to 𝐷oCommon, and I ended up connecting with them. And I interviewed with a number of different companies. And I picked 𝐷oCommon, and particularly their semiconductor distribution operation, largely because of the first who would be my first boss, a guy by the name of Brian Clark, who was probably the smartest guy I'd ever met, and I learned a lot from. And there were stronger companies, candidly, but I chose Kurov because I knew that that I could learn a lot from Brian. And I did, and we, maintained our friendship to this day. But that's how I got started. I went then, it was a management program. I started in 1983 in semiconductors. James, I didn't know a thing about semiconductors. Okay, but what I knew was, and I quickly came to develop an understanding of, is I knew who bought them. I knew how they used them, and I knew how many they bought. And so that launched me into industrial sales. And then I continued then back to complete my law degree. And I was thinking I was going to go into corporate law with 𝐷oCommon, upon completion of my law degree. And the general counsel at the time, a guy by the name of Fred Baylord, who had come from Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, a major law firm in Los Angeles, Stanford undergrad, Stanford Law School, amazing guy. I was really looking forward to working with him and for him to continue my corporate, my quest to be a corporate lawyer. Maybe not quite Atticus Finch, but maybe a little less exciting than that. But we were sold. That was my first experience in getting the news when I came to work that, hey, guess what? Our division has been sold. And we were sold to another company in New York, Arrow Electronics. And in the process of meeting the new company, that was my first experience with, wow, I thought I had a plan and a path. And, life happens to you in the process in the middle of you making plans and having plans, right? So on my comment about being flexible, I ended up meeting with the people at Arrow, and I realized they were going to go through a selection process because we were competitors, different strengths and weaknesses relatively in various markets across the U.S. But there was going to be a selection process, right? And there were going to be an integration of best people, best practices, and I ended up prevailing in running the combined operation after the acquisition. But I went in and met with their legal department and said, hey, I really want to, I want to continue now that I've got my law degree. I want to complete the bar and I want to be a corporate lawyer. And they said, well, hold on just a sec. Our law department is full. I went, great. Okay. Now what? So I continued, at that time I was running one of the operations of the combined entity in Orange County. And they ended up offering to send me back to get a master's degree. And that's what I did.
Hold that thought.
Yep.
You got to take a station break. I'm excited. I know you all excited. Just chatting with this young man right here. And I tell you what, it's a lot more. It's a lot more that's going to be. And if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on or listening to us on and just ask any question that you might have. I promise you, we'll get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity. Coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley.
There's much truth in a journey that ain't over yet.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, or hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? In everything that you do.
Noah Dingley here, producer of The James Cooley Show, It's Your Life. And the new audio version of James' book, Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet, is a must-have. James shares his true life story of struggle and success in America. It's both a cautionary tale and a roadmap to achieving the American dream. Get the new audio version of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James Cooley on Amazon.com or wherever audiobooks are sold.
Dr. James J.C. Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection. Hello, welcome back to It's Your Life. Wow, just enjoying this great guest that I have on today, and just sharing his views, his ideas, and a lot of things that led up to him being successful. which if you take heed and listen to what this young man is talking about, you can be successful. Not saying that you're not, but you have to discover yourself. You have to discover who you are. You have to want to. You have to want to achieve the highest goal possible. For self-satisfaction, it's kind of remind me of Maslow hierarchy of achievement. That's basic things that we need to do as we continue to progress, as we continue to grow, and as we continue to learn. It's just certain things that in order for us to, I would say, reach the high success that God put us on here to do, it's going to require some work. And it's going to require us being able to listen to others, take others' ideas, formulate it into the way it's going to strive you to achieve whatever you want to. And that's what I believe. What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
No, I think that's true, and it's all part of also, the being in a network and understanding and learning from others, and that certainly drove a big part of my career because, again, I thought I was on a direction with Ducommun. We get bought by Arrow Electronics. I had just started to figure out my own job, and now I'm in a new company with a new corporate culture, and I realized that that's kind of the first time, James, that I realized that, it's great to have the education, right? But the real sweet spot is where your experience complements your education and your education complements your experience. And at that point, I was heavy on education and didn't have all the experience that I needed, and I moved on and from Arrow and took an opportunity to join a private equity firm in an entirely different industry. It was a real experience because I'd left a high-tech industry that was very fast-paced. The rate of innovation in products and semiconductors and technologies and applications for same was just explosive. And now I go into a more staid, industry that's mature, that is quite at the opposite end of the spectrum, right? And the skills that I needed to require, were required of me were very different, right? It's very different going from high tech to commodity, going from a regional, going from a national company that had aspirations to be global and did become global, both Avnet and Arrow, but in a more regional or localized market, right? Two very different things, and I realized, that a lot of that they didn't teach you in law school. They didn't teach you in business school, right? And I think that was, something that as I continued, after being in San Diego running a electrical supply company that serviced industry and process motor control, a lot of the companies that you worked with, were prime or sub to, that were in San Diego in the aerospace and defense market. Instead of going through the front door, to sell semiconductors and related products, the company that I was at was selling motor process controls for machinery, load centers, pipe wire conduit for building high rises and factories. Very different very different product. So
wow, making a change, and I know it's scary. Going from something that you're very comfortable with to industry to industry where you have to relearn,
right,
in the industry in order to be successful in the industry.
Right.
For some of our viewers out there that might be like, wow, so he went from this industry to that industry. Was he scared? Was he nervous?
I think early on in my career, I didn't know enough to know whether I should be scared or not. But I looked at, you talk about challenges, right? I looked at them as opportunities because after I left, the industry and the goal was the entity that I joined in San Diego had operations that had been acquired, and there were competitors owned by the same company that had never been integrated. So while Arrow and Ducommun gave me my first shot at being sold and seeing that side of the acquisition divestment process, my job in San Diego was to integrate these two companies that were owned by the same entity, but they'd never been integrated before, right? So and then after completing that, I went to Los Angeles and another private equity firm, late stage, very mature company, been in one family for many, many years, started after the war, World War II, as many of the paper and packaging companies did. But I went to a corrugated box plant, and now a whole nother industry, right? Very mature, very staid. The objective there was to facilitate an exit strategy, because at that point, mature companies in mature industries are really kind of growth is by really acquisition, right? As industries get consolidated, and the big player there was, Kent Landsberg, and they were buying, Suncliff, they were buying, most of the companies and putting them together. It was after that I returned back to electronics and semiconductors with Avnet. And again, I got an opportunity to go work for an individual that I had known as a competitor, and a guy by the name of Steve Church. And I went to work for him in a corporate level position, really to be the vice president, assistant to the president, chief of staff. And my role, that was my first staff job, right? So I'd gone from high tech to commodity. I'm not going to say low tech, because there's a lot of technology even involved in more commodity products, right? There's a real art to all of this. But the task that I hired into at Avnet was to essentially work with Steve Church, my boss, and the rest of the team as Avnet was going through its own internal reorganization and reinventing itself for what it wanted to be to face the future, which it has done very successfully and continues to do so. So I went from big company to small company, from sales to staff. And really it was then that I started to realize, you know what, the industries may be different, but the dime dropped for me that, you know what, all businesses have two things in common. They need to take care of their employees, and they need to have satisfied customers, right? In whatever good or service you're providing to the market. The rest of it is, I didn't need to go in, and it didn't hinder me at all that I didn't know anything about corrugated boxes. It didn't hinder me that I didn't know anything about electrical construction, right? It didn't hinder me that I really didn't know a lot about semiconductors. There were people there that had the product knowledge, right, that I could learn from, and that I could take field applications engineers in, or I could take, marketing people in, right? But the point was, I knew how to sell. I was developing a real expertise and an enjoyment in determining customers' needs and making sure they got the best service possible out of my company, and realizing that in order to do that, I had to take care of the employees who would then take care of my customers, something I learned later on.
Wow.
And those were the transferable skills, that I learned. So I would say to anybody who's looking at making a career move, you get caught sometimes in one industry, right? And I know people that have been very, very successful at predominantly one company. My former boss that I worked for is now the CEO of Avnet, Phil Gallagher, had done that very successful career in primarily one industry, one company. For me, it was more of a realization that I wanted to go and see how I could apply things I'd learned and applied elsewhere. Because when you get into a situation where, you're drawing on your experience to go do different things, that comes back to that question you asked at the very beginning, right? About curiosity, versatility, and then trying to figure out, how do I take things and experiences from other industries, other companies? Because sometimes in staid, mature companies, you get into this group think, right? And it's really hard sometimes to be an innovator or a change agent, in a company that's pretty well established. But another thing I think common to all companies is, you better be evolving, because there's no standing still. Look at what's happening right now with AI. Look at what's happening now with technology that's redefined how we work, how we interact with customers, how our employees interact with customers, and not necessarily always going into an office. We've now got global reach, the likes of which, I had didn't have any awareness of when I first started my career, right? And so, those are some of the things that drive me. But if you're not innovating wherever you're at, and if you happen to be in a commodity, you better be the value provider and low cost. And if you've got technology at your back and you've got customers reaching out for you for the latest, greatest. I mean, James, I remember, in the 80s selling 10 megabyte disk drives to my industrial customers, and they were the size of a shoebox, right? And the rate of evolution of semiconductors and technology and industry and customers that were absorbing those. And now we've got, smart cars and smart appliances and smart medical devices, and the list goes on. But I think that's the thing that I enjoyed most, because each of those companies, and then after in my career, I got taken to other parts of the world. I got introduced to other cultures and ways of doing business, and that really was what drove me. And I wouldn't have necessarily had that if I stayed with one company.
Wow, you mentioned something. I know we got a commercial break coming up, but evolving, evolution, change, inevitable.
Right.
All of those things happen.
Right.
And then there's sometimes when we're at the top of our game, we get knocked down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knocked down.
Yeah.
And just like Michelle mentioned earlier, how do we react when we get knocked down? Do we stay down? Do we just throw the towel in?
Right.
Or do you say, hey, I'm boxing.
I'm throwing hands.
So we got to take a station break, but when we come back,
of course,
we're going to talk about that. And my viewers and our listeners out there, you want to be part of the conversation. All you have to do, just go to the platform that you're on, ask any question that you might have. I promise you, between Tim and myself, we're going to get you an answer. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity. Coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley. The J.C. Cooley Foundation is
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. And wow, I am thoroughly enjoying this interview with Dr. You don't use the title, Dr. Tim Grant. Man, you're extraordinary, man. I mean, just information that you're putting out there.
Sure.
helpful to everybody.
Glad to be a part of it.
And it's helpful to everybody. One thing I got to say this, Tim, is I want to thank especially our YouTube audience. We just went over 32,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I'd get past 100 subscribers. We just went over 32,000, and we're averaging, since we started this, 3,000 subscribers, new subscribers a month.
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue to grow. When you have great guests like Tim on the show, that just
right.
I just prompt that. And Tim, I want to thank you for helping us do that.
Oh, my pleasure. And by the way, I just finished your book, right? Country Boy, City Boy, a journey that ain't over yet, and I highly recommend it. It's I think you're the primary reason for the draw, James, but that'll absolutely be the case when people finish your book. And it's only one of several, I understand. So I started with that one. Great story.
Yes. Hey Tim, we was talking about all the great things that leading up to entering college, choosing a field, dipping and dabbing, gaining all type of experiences in other areas. And then we reached the top of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason or another, it happened to me. If you read my book, you already know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We kind of have a setback, a major, unexpected, don't know anything, boom. Yes. Where, in my case, I don't know about yours, I thought it was the end of the world for me. and it's like, how do I handle this?
Right.
And I believe in the Lord, my Lord and Savior. Me and Michelle, we're big believers. And so what I did was reach up, ask him for guidance, whatever that is. And over a period of time, he kind of gave me that new path. I noticed that you did reach a hot level, and you had challenges, cancer, and all those type of things.
Right.
Can you share with our audience, when you first found out, what was going through your mind, and how did you rehabilitate, get your right mindset, and say, hey, this is not going to take me down?
Right.
Can you talk to our viewers?
Absolutely. For me, it was September 4th, 2015. I got a diagnosis of stage 4 metastatic melanoma. And that's when the journey started, right? Because, again, life's what happens to you in between, the plans you're making. And that was and it continues to be, a pivotal point, in my life. And then because I was very fortunate to have had a family physician at that time, Dr. 𝐇𝐎𝐏𝐿, who's since passed away, he got me to Dr. Gregory Daniels, MD, PhD, professor of medicine, clinician, specializes in the treatment of melanoma and other skin cancers, head and neck. And his certified physician's assistant, Brian Sutton. And that was really where I started that first conversation, right? Here's the reality. Here's going to be the treatment plan. And Dr. Daniels and Brian were with me, at a time when I was starting this journey to begin treatment for my metastatic melanoma, realizing that I was on the bubble, right? I mean, it was, and maybe not fully realizing how much of a bubble I was really on. But it was Dr. Daniels who looked down at me. I was paralyzed from the waist down at that point because of my metastatic cancer. And so I didn't have the use of my legs or anything below the waist. And he's staring down at me in a gurney. And I said, look, Dr. Daniels, I'm smart enough to know that, death is certainly a part of the life cycle. I get that. I'm just not ready yet to pass on. And he looks at me, and with this great sincerity, he said, well, then don't. Right. And I went, what do you mean? He says, look, I got the medicine, I'll handle the medical part. You keep your head on straight. You stay in the game with me and watch your outlook. And you've said it, James, yourself, right? we've got to control our thoughts before our thoughts control us, right? Your words. And that's so true, right? Because, I was blessed to have, you and I've talked about it, but I was blessed to have faith, family, and friends at my back. My wife was really, absolutely instrumental in getting me through this. In my 7 months of hospitalization and the 2 years of active cancer treatment that followed thereafter, I was ripped from my job, my home, my family, and I was in a hospital for 7 months, right? And, she was managing and advocating for me and dealing with insurance and all various issues that had to be dealt with, leaving me to focus on keeping my head straight. And that I absolutely worked on. And like I said, we're both people of faith. I'm blessed to have some phenomenal friends and an amazing family that, at the head of that spear includes my wife, Laird. We've been married over 30 years. But I also had other phenomenal physicians, right? I mean, during that time, I was cared for by Dr. Carl Steinberg, here in San Diego, a medical doctor, family practice certified, but also in palliative care. And I ended up, by luck, landing in one of the facilities in San Diego, Life Care Centers of Vista, that he is the medical director of, as well as a number of other places. And he watched me during this whole process, right? I'd leave on a gurney from the skilled nursing facility. I'd transfer via ambulance to receive my immunotherapy back. I mean, I remember, James, the first day that I could move a toe, right? And that was the beginning of a recovery, but it's still going on, right? I mean, I got tremendous care and treatment from Dr. Steinberg, who continues to remind me that every day is a gift. And I got to tell you something. I was in and out of a lot of those facilities, and the one thing I learned is my wife and I decided, we were going to have a 48-hour pity party, and then it was over, okay? Because I didn't know where this was going, but I had, kids that were, 9 and 11 at that time. I had business commitments and other things, and we started the process of preparing. It's that absolutely got me through. Faith, family, and friends. I had some excellent friends that showed up for me at every single, step of the way. I already mentioned, I had excellent medical care here in San Diego. But I had to relearn everything, and I'm still continuing to do that, right? I still, my Dr. Daniels described it on my last visit as slow, steady progress to recover the use of my legs, control the nerve pain, control, everything that comes with that. And it taught me, to my point about being in these other facilities, I encountered a lot of healthcare workers, right? I mean, the people that come in and change your diapers and give you a sponge bath and work with you on occupational therapy. These are some tremendous human beings, and a lot of them aren't paid very well. I met a number of people, James, that were working 2 and 3 jobs, doing this kind of work. And, the woman that came in, almost every other morning, or whatever it was, the frequency that Dr. Steinberg was monitoring my labs, she'd come in at 5 a.m. and I'd be the first blood draw, right? And I'd meet her when she opened the door and greet her by name and how are you this morning and thank you for being here, right? She looks at me like, wow, that's not really a welcome that I get from everybody at 5 a.m, right? But, kindness is free, so give it away, right? And my attitude and my outlook drove and encouraged, the people that I was working with, right?
You just mentioned something. You mentioned attitude.
Right.
Attitude in anything that we do, especially when we're going through trials and tribulations, or our attitude is what's going to make or break us.
Right.
It's going to make or break us. And I know that 1 hour is not enough, and we might have to do this again if your schedule permit.
Sure.
Because we got so many other things that I wanted to talk about today, but we're down to the last minute and a half of the show. And let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
What is next? What do Tim want to do next after overcoming these things and still? I mean, you win in the battle. So,
right.
What's next for Tim Grant?
My focus right now is, continuing to recover, on that slow, steady process or progress that I told you I was making, to regain some of the activities of daily living that are still a challenge for me, right? And hinder my ability to really do what I did the way I did it, in terms of, for a number of reasons. Continue to work on that, continue to wake up every day with an attitude of gratitude, because, I learned a lot about myself. And to your point, when you go into these tough times and you think you know how you're going to react, you may even, know how you hope you're going to react, but you don't know until you're there how you're going to react, right? And so I learned, be kind to everybody. Everybody's dealing with something that you may not know about. We can all show each other a little more, compassion and kindness and in the way we deal with each other, because someday it could be you, it was me, it's been you, and it may be again, right? In whatever form that takes. So that's my takeaway on that.
Hey, Tim, I got to say, you got an open platform to come on the show.
Thank you.
If your schedule allow you to do that.
Sure.
So I want to thank you so much for taking time to come on the James Cooley Show. It's your life. I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Cooley for putting together another absolutely fantastic show. I'd like to thank my producer, Chris, for all the great things that he's doing, radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170 Answer, and other platforms and podcasts that we're associated with them. And most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning in to It's Your Life. We'll be back tomorrow, same time.
Thank you, Dr. James.
It's your life. We'll see you then. Always, before I go, you gotta always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll see you
Dr.
tomorrow.
James Cooley and how you can support the show or become a guest. Visit CooleyFoundation.org.